The cold CEO was tired of being deceived by women. Until two kids barged in shouting, "Daddy!" He froze. Logan Mercer adjusted his tie knot and glanced at his watch. 6 p.m. Like always, 34 years old, owner of one of the biggest tech companies on the West Coast, his routine was precise like a Swiss watch. Work from 7 to 6, gym, dinner alone. Sleep by 10, no surprises, no setbacks, no one wanting anything from him. He grabbed his leather briefcase and walked across the office. His employees already knew. When Logan left, no one disturbed him. Not even a "good evening" or "see you tomorrow." He liked it that way. The elevator descended 20 floors in silence. Logan checked his emails on his phone. 3 partnership proposals, 2 meeting requests, and a message from the security company. Everything under control. The doors opened on the ground floor, and he walked through the black marble lobby. The doorman waved, but Logan just passed by. Personal relationships were complicated. Work was simple. The sidewalk was busy at 6 p.m. Hurried executives, coffee vendors, bike couriers. Logan crossed the crowd without looking at anyone, focused solely on the parked car across the street. That's when he heard it. "Daddy!" Logan stopped. The voice was high-pitched, childish. Someone was running toward him. He looked back and saw 2 little girls, twins apparently. Dark hair, big eyes, no older than 5. They ran straight to him with huge smiles on their faces. "Daddy! Daddy!" Logan felt his chest tighten, not from emotion, from alertness. The girls stopped right in front of him, panting and happy. The smaller one stretched out her arms as if expecting him to pick her up. "Daddy, we found you!" Logan looked around. Some people on the sidewalk started paying attention to the scene. An older lady smiled, finding it cute. A man in a suit stopped to watch. "You're mistaken," Logan said, keeping his voice low but firm. "I'm not your father." The older girl frowned. "Of course you are. We saw you in the photo." "What photo?" Logan shook his head, even before she could answer. It didn't matter what photo, this was clearly a setup. "You two go home, now." "But Daddy, I'm not your dad." His voice came out louder than intended. Some people turned around. Logan felt his face flush. He hated being the center of attention. The girls exchanged confused looks. The smaller one was almost crying. "But you look just like the photo," she whispered. Logan took a deep breath. He needed to get out of there, fast. "Listen carefully. I don't know who you are, where you came from, but I'm nobody's father. Leave before I call security." He turned his back to them and walked toward his car. He heard a quiet sob behind him but didn't look back. He couldn't. But before getting into the car, Logan glanced around and saw Marcus, his personal driver, leaning against the wall of the neighboring building. The man always stayed close when Logan left work, just in case. Logan waved. Marcus approached immediately. "Yes, Mr. Mercer." "Do you see those 2 girls on the sidewalk?" Marcus looked in the direction indicated. The 2 children were still standing in the same place, looking confused. "Yes, sir." "Follow them. Find out where they live, and with whom." Marcus frowned but didn't question. 5 years working for Logan had taught him not to ask unnecessary questions. "Is there anything specific you want to know?" "Everything. Who the parents are, where they live, how long they've been in the city, and especially who sent them to me." "Sent them?" Logan opened the door of his Mercedes. "Someone is trying to scam me, Marcus, and they used 2 kids for it." He got into the car and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, he saw Marcus discreetly walking toward the girls. Logan knew the pattern. There was always someone trying to take advantage of him. Ex-girlfriends inventing relationships that never existed, people pretending to be distant relatives, employees making up stories to get raises. But using children, that was new, and low, even by the standards he had seen. He pressed the accelerator and drove away from the building. Marcus was competent and discreet. In a few hours, he would know exactly what was going on. He turned on the radio to push away his thoughts, but the girls' voices kept echoing in his head. "Daddy, we found you." He shook his head. He wasn't going to fall for that. He had fallen for setups before when he was younger and more naive. People approaching pretending genuine interest, only to later ask for money, favors, connections. He learned the hard way that everyone wanted something, and those pretending not to want were even more dangerous. Traffic was slow. Logan drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, impatient. He wanted to get home, take a shower, forget the day, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw those girls' faces, the way they smiled when they saw him, as if they really knew him. Professionals, he muttered to himself. Whoever's behind this trained them well, because that was what bothered him the most. It wasn't just that two kids had called him daddy, it was the natural way they did it, the genuine joy in their eyes. They almost made him doubt himself for a second. Almost. Logan Mercer didn't doubt anything, especially when it came to people trying to manipulate him. In a few hours, Marcus would have the answers he needed. Then he'd know exactly who was behind this. Nobody used children to try to deceive him. Nobody. Logan got home at 8 p.m. The apartment was exactly how he liked it. Minimalist and organized, quiet. Every object in its place, every surface clean. No clutter, no memories scattered around, nothing reminding him of people. He threw his briefcase on the black leather couch and went straight to the kitchen. Opened the fridge and grabbed a beer, the usual ritual. But today something felt different. He couldn't stop thinking about those girls. He sat on the couch and turned on the TV, but the sound was just background noise. His mind was elsewhere, digging through memories he preferred to keep locked away. Sarah. The name came out of nowhere, like a punch to the stomach. Sarah had been the first. 22, freshly graduated, full of dreams and plans for the future. She was beautiful, smart, fun, said she loved him. For 6 months, Logan believed he'd found something real, until he found out Sarah was really interested in his family's money. Not him, never him. Logan took a sip of beer and tried to push the memory away, but it came back full force. The argument, her fake tears, the excuses that convinced no one. "You never trust me," she had yelled in the end, and Logan had replied, "Because you gave me reasons not to." After Sarah came Amanda, then Jessica, then Vanessa. They all followed the same pattern, approaching him with smiles and promises, saying they understood him, loved him for who he was, not what he had. Lies. They all wanted something. Money, connections, status, opportunities. Some were subtle, others direct. But in the end, there was always a hidden interest behind every affectionate gesture. Logan learned to recognize the signs, the way they touched him when asking favors, how they changed the subject when he talked about work, how their eyes sparkled when he mentioned investments or expensive trips. Every gesture hid an interest. That became his rule of life. When someone smiled at him, Logan wondered, what does this person want? When someone praised him, he thought, what's the intention behind that? When someone approached, his first reaction was to find out the plan. Because there was always a plan, always. Logan finished his beer and went to get another. Passed by the living room shelf and saw a photo of himself with his parents, taken years ago. He was younger, more naive, still believed people could be genuine. What a fool. His phone rang. Logan looked at the screen. Marcus. Found anything? I did. Mr. Mercer. Do you want me to come over or explain over the phone? Come here. Logan hung up and went to the window. The city sparkled below, full of people probably lying to each other at this very moment, pretending feelings they didn't have, promising things they wouldn't keep. 20 minutes later, Marcus rang the doorbell. Come in, Logan said, opening the door. I said, what did you find out? Marcus pulled a notepad from his pocket. The girls' names are Jolie and Mira, 5 years old, twins. Logan crossed his arms. Go on. They live with their mother in a simple house on the west side of town, lower middle-class neighborhood, nothing fancy. And the father? Apparently no father around. At least I didn't see any man going in or out of the house. Logan frowned. That didn't make sense. If someone was trying to scam him, there would surely be a man behind the plan. Single mothers with small kids rarely had the means to orchestrate such schemes. Anything else? Marcus checked his notes. The mother works at a downtown cafe, normal business hours. The kids stay with a neighbor during the day. No fancy cars, designer clothes, nothing indicating wealth. Do they go to school? I didn't find school records, but that might be normal considering their age. Logan walked back to the window. Something was wrong. People who scam millionaires don't live in simple houses or work in cafes. Marcus, are you sure there's nothing suspicious? No strange activity? No one watching the house? Nothing, Mr. Mercer. I spent 3 hours watching. It's a normal family. Quiet. The mother came home at 6, picked up the girls from the neighbor's farm. They had dinner, watched TV, and went to bed early. Marcus closed the notepad. To be honest, sir, I didn't see anything indicating a scam. Just silence. Silence. The word echoed in Logan's mind. That was what bothered him the most. Scammers make noise, create situations, pressure, insist. They don't disappear silently. Are you sure you followed the right kids? Absolutely. Dark hair, brown eyes, identical twins. They even mentioned to their mother they saw Daddy today. Logan felt a chill down his spine. What did the mother say? I couldn't hear clearly. They were inside, but she didn't seem surprised or worried. Logan walked to the couch and sat down, ran his hands through his hair, trying to organize his thoughts. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. If it was a scam, there would be pressure. Calls, messages, contact attempts, requests for money, lawyers showing up with paternity papers, but there was none of that. Just silence. Marcus, I want you to keep watching. A few more days. Discreetly. Yes, sir. And if anyone tries to contact me, my company, or anyone close to me, I want to know immediately. Understood. Marcus left, leaving Logan alone with his thoughts. He returned to the window and looked at the city. Below, people were lying to each other, pretending love for money, faking friendship for interest, inventing stories for convenience. That was how the world worked. But then why did those two girls make him so restless? Logan took another sip of beer and tried to convince himself he was right, that someone was plotting something, that in a few days the truth would come out and he could return to his normal life. But a little voice deep inside whispered a question he didn't want to hear. What if it wasn't a scam? Logan shook his head. Of course it was a scam. It had to be, because if it wasn't, that meant his rule of life was wrong. And he couldn't be wrong about that. He couldn't. Logan spent 2 sleepless nights. On the 3rd morning, he gave up trying to ignore the growing unease in his chest, cancelled all meetings for the day, and asked Marcus to get the girl's address. By 10 a.m., he was driving through the west side of town. The neighborhood was exactly as Marcus described. Lower middle class, simple houses, tree-lined streets. Logan observed every detail critically. Old cars parked on sidewalks, well-kept but modest gardens, kids playing in the streets. Nothing indicating wealth or elaborate schemes to scam millionaires. But Logan knew the best scams were just like that, convincing in their simplicity. He slowed down when he found the right number. House number 47, Maple Street. It was a small 2-story house, painted light blue with white trims. The front yard was well maintained, with some flowers planted by the porch. A child's bicycle leaned against the wall, and a set of colored chalks was scattered on the sidewalk. Logan parked across the street and watched for a few minutes, analyzing every element of the scene. Perfect setting for a scam, he thought. Too simple a house to raise suspicion, but neat enough to make a good impression. The flowers in the garden, the strategically placed bicycle, even the chalk on the sidewalk, everything seemed calculated to give the image of a humble but loving family. Whoever was behind this knew exactly what they were doing. Logan checked his watch. 10:15 a.m., a time when the kids would be home, available for the performance. More evidence that everything was orchestrated. He was about to leave when he heard laughter coming from the backyard. He got out of the car and crossed the street. The side fence was low enough to peek over, and there they were. The two girls sitting on the ground playing with bottle caps and pieces of string. The smaller was trying to tie the string around a cap, while the other had already made a sort of makeshift yo-yo. "Look, Mira, I made it spin. Let me try." They laughed as the cap slipped from the smaller one's hands and rolled across the yard. Logan watched coldly. Well-trained kids, he thought, playing with simple objects to project an image of innocent poverty. The performance was rehearsed down to the smallest detail, but he had to admit, whoever trained them did an excellent job. They seemed genuinely absorbed in the game. That's when the older one looked toward the fence and saw him. "Mira! Look!" The two dropped the caps immediately and ran to the fence, huge smiles on their faces. "You came back," said the smaller one, stretching her arms toward him. "We knew you'd come back," added the other. Logan kept a neutral expression. The kids were good actors, he had to admit. The smiles looked genuine, the joy in their eyes convincing. "How did you know?" "Because you're our daddy," said the smaller one, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "And Daddy always comes back," added the older. Logan almost laughed at the performance. Whoever was behind this had trained the girls well. Every line was perfectly crafted to hit the emotional chord. "Come, come," they said at the same time, motioning for him to come closer. The girls ran toward the house, one shouting, "Mom, he's here! Daddy's here!" Logan walked to the front door, mentally preparing to face the real mastermind behind the farce. Who could it be? A professional scammer, someone who knew his past and decided to use it against him. He knocked. Footsteps approached from inside. The door opened, and Logan felt the world stop. Camille. The woman at the door looked exactly as he remembered, only more mature. Light brown hair, now shorter. Green eyes he knew well. The same face that had haunted his thoughts for months after their breakup. "Logan." They stared at each other for a moment. Logan felt a mix of shock and, strangely, betrayal. Camille Hart. Of course it was her. Now everything made sense. The woman he had dumped years ago, suspecting her intentions, was back, and she'd brought heavy artillery. "Mom, it's him! He's the daddy from the photo!" shouted one of the girls, appearing beside Camille and tugging at her shirt. "We told you we'd find him," added the others, squeezing in on the other side. Logan looked at Camille with a hard expression. Now everything made sense. She'd held a grudge over the breakup and decided to get revenge using the kids. The plan was brilliant in its cruelty. "You two go play inside for a few minutes. Mommy needs to talk to Logan," Camille said, and Logan noticed her voice tremble slightly. Good actress, he thought, even faking nervousness. The girls obeyed, but not without enthusiastically waving at Logan. "Do you want to come in?" Camille asked quietly. Logan nodded. Better to settle this once and for all. The sooner he unmasked the farce, the better. The inside of the house was exactly what he expected. Simple, modest, well kept. There were drawings from the girls stuck to the fridge, toys organized in baskets in the corner of the living room, colorful cushions on the sofa, children's books stacked on the coffee table. All very calculated to give the image of a needy but happy family. Logan recognized staging when he saw it. "Sit down, please," Camille said, pointing to the sofa. Logan sat at the edge, stiff, maintaining a defensive posture. Camille settled into the armchair across, keeping distance. He noticed she avoided direct eye contact. Logan decided to get straight to the point. "So this is your plan," he said, cold and controlled voice. "My plan?" Camille asked, and Logan saw a genuinely confused expression cross her face. Either she was an exceptional actress, or, no, he wasn't going to fall for it again. "Using kids to try to extort me. I admit it's creative, Camille. More elaborate than I expected from you." Camille's face visibly paled. "Logan, you don't understand. They are They are what? My daughters? Logan laughed bitterly. Please, do you think I'm stupid? They are your daughters, Camille said, voice growing firmer. But Logan detected a tremor beneath the determination. Of course they are. And you decided to show up now, 5 years later, because I didn't show up. They came looking for you. Logan stood and started pacing the room, analyzing every object, every picture on the wall. Everything seemed too authentic. What kind of scammer would invest so much in set design? Let me guess the story you made up, he said, stopping in front of a shelf with children's books. You found out you were pregnant after we broke up. Tried to reach me, but I wouldn't listen. So you decided to raise them alone. Spent years fighting, working hard, being a heroic mum. Now that they're older, you thought it was time to introduce me to my daughters. Logan turned to face Camille. What are you waiting for? Back child support, money for education, a better house? Or will you just ask for a lump sum to disappear? Camille was silent for a long moment, and Logan saw tears forming in her eyes. Once again, the performance was convincing. It's not like that, she said quietly, voice almost breaking. Not like that, then explain it to me. And please spare me the drama. Camille took a deep breath, clearly trying to control herself. You ended things with me, Logan. Said I was trying to take advantage of you. That all women did that. And I was right, apparently. Logan saw Camille flinch as if slapped. I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks after you kicked me out. Logan crossed his arms. And you didn't reach out because you made it very clear what you thought of me. How you would react if I showed up pregnant. Exactly how I'm reacting now. That's why I said nothing, Camille said, a tear running down her face. That's why I decided to raise them alone, and I did. Logan studied her expression. Either Camille had become an extraordinary actress, or no. He couldn't let himself be fooled by tears. He'd fallen for that before. For 5 years you planned this moment. For 5 years I tried to forget you. Camille's voice came out louder than she intended. She glanced quickly toward where the girls were and lowered her tone. Logan, do you think it was easy raising 2 kids alone, working 2 jobs to pay for diapers, staying up nights when they were sick, with no one to help? Her voice was loaded with an emotion that seemed too real to be faked. Do you think I wanted to remember you every day looking at their faces, seeing your eyes in them, your stubbornness, your expressions? Logan kept his cold expression, but something inside him wavered for a second. Then why did they come looking for me now? Camille wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. They found a picture of you in an old box, asked who it was. I told them it was their dad, and then they came up with the plan together. There was no plan. The frustration in Camille's voice seemed genuine. They got curious, searched your name on the internet, found articles about your company, decided to find you on their own. 5-year-olds don't decide things like that, Camille. Someone planted that idea in their heads. Nobody planted anything. They just wanted to meet their dad. And you did nothing to stop them. I tried to dissuade them, explained you were very busy, that maybe you wouldn't want to meet them. Sure you did. At that moment, the girls appeared at the living room door. Logan noticed they looked genuinely worried about the tone of the conversation. Mom, why are you two fighting? One of them asked. Logan looked at the two. He had to admit, whoever trained them had done an exceptional job. The concern in their eyes looked authentic. We're not fighting, sweetheart, Camille said, forcing a smile that fooled no one. I'm just talking about grown-up things. Can you play with us? Asked the other girl, looking directly at Logan. Logan studied them. There was something in their expressions that bothered him. They didn't seem to be acting. They seemed truly innocent, but he couldn't be fooled. Not again. Maybe later, Logan answered coldly. The girls looked disappointed but went back to the other room. Logan, Camille began, but he interrupted her. I want a DNA test, he said, looking directly at her. Camille didn't seem surprised by the request. Of course, take as many tests as you want. The promptness of the response caught him off guard. Scammers usually resisted tests, Tried to buy time. Saying I'll schedule it for this week. No problem. Logan headed to the door but stopped. And just to be clear, if these girls really are mine, we'll settle this legally. With lawyers, the right way. And if they're not? Camille asked quietly. Logan stared at her. Then you'll have to explain to them why you made up such a cruel story. Camille closed her eyes for a moment, as if trying to hold herself together. They'll get hurt if you just disappear again, Logan. Then you should have thought about that before starting this farce. It's not a farce, she said, voice almost a whisper. Logan walked toward the door. Camille followed, keeping her distance. On the porch, she tried once more. Logan, I know you don't believe me. I know you think this is some kind of scam. But please, don't hurt these girls because of what you think of me. If they really are my daughters, I'll do what's right, legally. And if you find out they really are your daughters, what will you do then? Logan stopped halfway down the stairs. I'll take financial responsibility. Only financial? Logan didn't answer. He went down the rest of the steps and walked to the car. Before getting in, he looked back. Camille was on the porch, eyes red. The girls appeared beside her, drawn by the movement. Bye, Daddy, they shouted, waving. Come back soon. Logan got in the car without waving back. Driving home, he tried to organize his thoughts. Camille seemed different from how he remembered, more mature, stronger, and there was something in her tears that seemed too real, but he couldn't trust his own instincts. He had been fooled before by women who seemed genuine. One question hammered in his mind. Why had Camille accepted the DNA test so easily? Scammers usually tried to avoid concrete proof, bought time, made excuses, changed the subject, but Camille hadn't hesitated even for a second. Logan shook his head, pushing doubts away. Women like Camille were experts at faking emotions. She had probably rehearsed every tear, every gesture of pain. He wasn't going to fall for it again. He wasn't. The envelope arrived Monday morning. Logan was at the office, trying to focus on quarterly reports, but his mind kept drifting to that blue house on Maple Street. It had been 3 days since the visit, 3 days avoiding thinking about the possibilities. When the secretary knocked on the door, he immediately knew what it was. Mr. Mercer, this arrived for you. Special delivery. Logan took the white envelope with the lab's logo. His hands trembled slightly as he tore the seal. For a moment, he hesitated. Once he opened that envelope, his life would change forever, one way or another. Paternity test result. He skimmed the technical text quickly, looking for the numbers that mattered. 99.99% probability of paternity. He is the father. Logan dropped the paper on the desk as if it was burning. He stared at the document for several minutes, the words seeming to move on the page. He is the father. All his theories about scams and setups collapsed in a second. Camille wasn't lying. The girls weren't trained actresses. They were his daughters. They had been his daughters from the first moment they ran to him shouting, "Daddy!" His daughters. Logan stood and walked to the window. Down below, the city went on as usual. People walking sidewalks, cars passing, the world continuing as if nothing had changed. But for him, everything had. There were 2 people in the world carrying half his genes, existing because of him, who had spent 5 years waiting to meet him, and he had rejected them. Worse, he had accused their mother of making up a cruel farce. He had looked at 2 innocent children and seen lies where there was only love. Logan returned to his desk and reread the result. 99%. There was no doubt. Jolie and Mira were his daughters. He picked up the phone and cancelled all his appointments for the day, cancelled the afternoon meetings, told his secretary to reschedule everything for the rest of the week. He needed to go back to that house. He needed to apologize. The word sounded strange even in his own mind. Logan Mercer didn't apologize. Logan Mercer was always right, always one step ahead, always knowing what people really wanted. But Logan Mercer had also never found out he was the father of 2 5-year-old girls. He drove to Maple Street in complete silence, No music, no calls, just him and his thoughts. He rehearsed mentally what he was going to say. How do you apologize for accusing someone of using kids to extort you? How do you explain 5 years of absence? How do you ask forgiveness for rejecting your own children? There was no manual for that, no business protocol that prepared him for that moment. He parked in front of house number 47 and sat there for a few minutes. The house looked exactly the same, but Logan saw it with different eyes now. It was no longer a set for a scam. It was his daughter's home. The living room curtains moved slightly. Someone had seen him arrive. He took a deep breath and got out of the car, walked to the door with slow steps, every meter feeling like an eternity. He knocked and waited. Footsteps approached, slower this time, more cautious. Camille opened the door. She looked calmer than he expected. There was no anger on her face, no satisfaction at being proven right, just a quiet resignation, as if she already knew why he was there. The test came, Logan said, his voice softer than intended. I figured. You wouldn't come back if it hadn't. They stared at each other for a moment. Logan looked for signs of triumph in her eyes, but found only calm sadness. Can I come in? Camille nodded and stepped aside. The house was exactly the same, but Logan saw it completely differently now. The toys scattered weren't props for a play. They were evidence of 2 little lives lived there. The drawings on the fridge weren't part of a scene. They were artistic expressions of his daughters. His daughters. Where are they? In the backyard, playing with soap bubbles. Logan could hear laughter coming from the back of the house, and the sound stirred something in his chest. Camille, No need, she said softly, anticipating what he was going to say. I do. Logan stopped in front of her and for the first time in years forced himself to be completely honest. No games, no strategies, no defense mechanisms. I'm sorry for not believing, for leaving, for being cruel to you and to them, for thinking you were capable of using children to manipulate me. Camille studied him silently, and Logan saw tears forming in her eyes. Did you really think I would make something like that up? Yes, I believed everyone wanted something from me. I always believed that every woman who approached me in recent years wanted money, or connections, or status. And now, Logan looked toward the backyard where the laughter continued. Now I know I was wrong. At least about this. At least about you. Camille nodded slowly. They don't know about the test. I didn't want to confuse them more. To them, you've always been their dad. What did you tell them? About me leaving so quickly? That you were busy with work, but that maybe you'd come back? That sometimes adults need time to think? Logan felt a pang of something that could be gratitude. Even after how he had treated her, Camille had protected his image before their daughters. Did they ask a lot? Every day. When is Daddy coming back? Why did he leave? Didn't he like us? Each question was like a stab. Logan imagined 2 little girls wondering if they weren't good enough for the dad they had just met. What did you answer? That you needed time. That it had nothing to do with them. That you'd come back when you were ready. How could you be sure you'd come back? Camille smiled for the first time since he arrived. Because I know you, Logan. You can be many things, but you're not a coward. Once you knew the truth, you'd do the right thing. Do you want to see them? She asked after a moment. Yes, but I don't know what to say. Start with the truth. They deserve that. Camille took him to the back door. In the yard, Jolie and Mira were chasing soap bubbles, trying to pop them before they hit the ground. They were wet, grass-stained, laughing loudly. Logan watched them for a moment, trying to absorb the scene. These were his daughters. Half of each of them came from him. Girls, Camille called. You have company. The 2 stopped running and looked toward the house. When they saw Logan, their faces lit up in a way that completely disarmed him. You came back, shouted Mira, dropping the bubble container and running toward him. We were playing with bubbles, said Jolie, coming closer more slowly but with the same huge smile. Want to play with us? Logan crouched in front of the two, getting to their eye level. Up close, he could see his features in their faces. Jolie's eyes had the same shape as his. Mira's stubborn chin was identical to his. "Girls, I need to tell you something important." They stopped immediately and paid attention, noticing the seriousness in his tone. I didn't believe you when you said I was your dad. I thought it was a lie." "But it wasn't a lie," Mira said, confused. "We showed the photo. I know that now. And I'm sorry for not believing." "Sorry for leaving." Logan took a deep breath, trying to find words a 5-year-old could understand. "I don't know how to be a dad. I've never been a dad before. Never even thought about it. But if you'll let me, I want to try. I want to learn." The girls looked at each other for a second and then smiled. "Of course you can," said Jolie. "You're our daddy," Mira added, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. And then, for the first time in his life, Logan hugged his daughters. It was awkward. He didn't know where to put his arms, how to squeeze without hurting, how long to hold. One girl was wet from playing, the other had grass stuck to her clothes, but it was sincere, it was real. The girls snuggled against him as if it was the most natural thing in the world, as if they'd been waiting for that hug for 5 years. "Are you staying for lunch?" Mira asked as they parted. Logan looked at Camille, who nodded. "I'll stay." And he did. He ate ham and cheese sandwiches at the small kitchen table while the girls babbled about everything and nothing. They talked about the neighbor who had a fat cat named Whiskers, about the cartoons they liked to watch, about how they wanted to learn to ride bikes. Logan just listened, trying to absorb every detail, every voice inflection, every gesture. He was truly meeting his daughters for the first time. After lunch, the girls insisted on showing the drawings they'd made during the week. Logan sat on the living room floor and looked at each carefully, asking sincere questions about the colors chosen and the characters drawn. "This is our family," Jolie said, showing a paper with 4 stick figures. Logan looked at the drawing. This time, there was a male figure in the family. Tall, wearing a tie, next to 3 smaller figures, 386. "When did you make this?" "Yesterday," Mira replied. "After you left the first time. We always knew you'd come back," added Jolie. "Family always comes back." Logan felt something tighten in his chest. These girls had faith in him that he didn't deserve. At 4 p.m., Logan realized he had to leave. He had a company to run, employees waiting for decisions. But for the first time in his life, he didn't want to leave work waiting. Can I come back tomorrow?" "You can," the girls answered in unison. "Only if you want to," Camille added quietly. "I want to." And he came back the next day, and the next, and the next. In the first weeks, Logan felt lost. He didn't know how to talk to 5-year-olds, didn't understand their games, didn't know what to do when they fought or threw tantrums, but he learned by watching Camille. He saw how she spoke to them, firm when necessary, always loving, how she resolved conflicts without yelling, how she turned boring chores into games. Logan started bringing things. At first, obvious gifts, expensive toys, designer clothes, imported sweets. But soon he realized the girls got more excited about simple presents. A finger paint set made Mira ecstatic for a week. A 50-piece puzzle became Jolie's obsession. "You don't have to bring anything," Camille said one afternoon when Logan arrived with grocery bags. "I know, but I want to help. I want to contribute." "Then help by staying. They don't want your gifts, Logan. They want you." It was true. Logan noticed the girls were happier when he simply sat on the floor to play with them than when he arrived with new toys. Gradually, he began to understand their personalities. Jolie was the more cautious one, the one who thought before acting. She liked puzzles and picture books, asked questions about everything and remembered every answer. Mira was impulsive and adventurous, climbed furniture, ran through the yard, invented crazy games. She protected her sister when anyone bothered them in the neighborhood. and both were smart in a way that surprised Logan. Made connections he didn't expect, had opinions on complex topics, created creative solutions to simple problems. 1 month after the first visit post-test, Logan was sitting in the yard watching the girls play when Mira came up and sat beside him. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" Logan still got startled every time they called him Daddy, but he was starting to like the sound. "Sure. Why did you take so long to come meet us?" The question caught him off guard. He looked at Camille, who was on the other side of the yard with Jolie, but she hadn't heard. I didn't know you existed. Mum said she tried to tell you about us when we were babies." Logan frowned. "When did she tell you that?" "When we asked why you didn't live with us. She said she told you about us when we were little, but you were too busy." Logan looked at Camille again. She had lied to the girls to protect him. "Mom lied," he said quietly. Mira looked at him wide-eyed. "Mom doesn't lie. This time she did, to protect me." Logan took a deep breath. "The truth is, your mum tried to tell me about you, but I didn't believe her. I thought she was making it up." "Why?" "Because I'm an idiot sometimes," Mira laughed. "Everyone is an idiot sometimes." Jolie said I'm an idiot when I eat sand. "You eat sand?" "Just a little, to see what it tastes like." Logan smiled genuinely for the first time in a long while. "Daddy?" "Yes? We just wanted to meet you. Mum didn't talk much about you." Logan felt something stirring in his chest. "What did you want to know?" "Everything. What you were like as a kid. If you liked to play. If you were like us." Jolie came closer, sensing this was an important conversation. "We wanted to know if there was something in you that was also us," she said softly. Logan looked at the two girls. For the first time in weeks, he didn't try to think of a smart or socially appropriate answer. He just told the truth. "There is," he said. "Ma'am, there's a lot." "What?" "You're stubborn. I am too. You ask a lot of questions. I did too when I was a kid." "And what else?" Logan thought. "You're brave. It took a lot of courage to come looking for me. And you're loyal to each other. I wish I were that loyal." "You can be," Mira said. "I'd just stay with us. That's what I'm trying to do." "And you will," Jolie added with the seriousness of a 5-year-old, "because you're our daddy." Logan was silent, just listening. For the first time in his adult life, he didn't feel the need to defend himself, explain his actions, or justify his fears. He just sat there in the yard with his daughters, learning that sometimes the simplest truth is also the most powerful. He was a dad, and maybe, just maybe, he could be good at it. Logan arrived at the Maple Street house on a Saturday morning with a different proposal. He had spent 2 weeks visiting the girls almost every day after work. Always at the house, always under Camille's watchful eye, always within the safe zone of the yard and living room. But that morning, he felt brave. "Good morning," he greeted Camille when she opened the door. "You're early today," she noted, but was smiling. "I wanted to ask something. For all 3 of you." The girls came running from the kitchen, still in pajamas, hair messy. "Daddy!" they shouted in unison, and Logan felt that familiar tightness in his chest. A good tightness, he realized. The kind of tightness that means something important is happening. "Good morning, girls. How about going out today?" "Going out?" Mira asked, eyes shining. "Where?" Jolie wanted to know. "I thought the park, and then a snack." Logan looked at Camille, seeking approval. "Just the 3 of us," he added quietly. Camille hesitated for a second. Logan understood. It was the first time he'd be alone with the girls, the first time he'd be fully responsible for them, even if just for a few hours. "Please, Mommy," Mira begged. "We promise to behave," Jolie added. Camille looked at Logan. "Are you sure?" "I am." And he really was. In recent weeks, he had watched Camille with the girls enough to know the basics. He knew they liked swings, that Mira was more adventurous on the playground, that Jolie preferred to watch before trying. "Okay," Camille agreed. But take jackets. It's a little chilly. The girls screamed with joy and ran to get dressed. 20 minutes later, Logan was driving through town with 2 kids in the back seat, singing a song he didn't know and clapping out of rhythm. He looked in the rearview mirror and saw Jolie and Mira completely absorbed in the music, without a care in the world. When was the last time he felt like that? Completely in the moment, without thinking about work, problems, responsibilities. He couldn't remember. The park was crowded for a Saturday morning. Families spread on the grass, kids running in all directions, parents pushing swings and shouting, "Watch out," every now and then. Logan felt slightly intimidated. All the other parents seemed to know exactly what they were doing. "Where do we go first?" he asked. "Swing," Mira shouted. "Seesaw," Jolie said at the same time. They looked at each other and laughed. "Swing first," Jolie decided. "Then seesaw." Logan followed them to the swings area, watching how they ran fearlessly, as if the whole world belonged to them. "Do you know how to push a swing?" Mira asked, already climbing into one of the seats. "I think so," Logan answered, positioning himself behind her. "Not too hard," Jolie warned, climbing onto the swing next to her. "Mira likes it hard, but I don't." Logan pushed Mira first, gently. She laughed. "Harder." He pushed a little harder. She screamed with joy. "More!" Logan looked at Jolie, who was swinging slowly, content with the gentle motion. "Everyone is different," he murmured to himself. "What?" Jolie asked. "Nothing, just thinking out loud." For 40 minutes, Logan pushed swings. Then they went to the seesaw. Then the slide. Mira climbed up running and slid down screaming. Jolie climbed slowly and slid down quietly, laughing. Logan stayed under the slide, ready to catch anyone who lost balance. They didn't. They were much more coordinated than he imagined, but he liked being there, liked being needed. "Daddy, come play with us," Mira shouted from the top of the slide. "I don't fit up there." "Of course you do. Come." Logan looked around. There were some parents at the playground, but none climbing on the equipment with their kids. "Go on, Daddy," Jolie encouraged. "You're brave. You're brave." Logan climbed the little ladder of the slide, feeling ridiculous. His long legs barely fit in the space meant for kids. But when he got to the top and saw the girls laughing at him, he didn't feel ridiculous anymore. He felt included. "Now go down," Mira commanded. Logan slid down, legs bent awkwardly, trying not to knock over any kids on the way. The girls laughed so much that other children came to see what was happening. "Look, his daddy is playing on the slide," a girl said admiringly. Logan felt a strange pride. After the park, they went to a small diner across the street. Logan let the girls choose what they wanted to eat. Mira ordered pancakes with chocolate syrup. Jolie ordered grilled cheese sandwich. "And to drink?" the waitress asked. "Apple juice," they both said together. Logan ordered coffee and watched the girls eat. Mira smeared her whole face with chocolate syrup. Jolie ate meticulously, one bite at a time. "So is it good?" he asked. "Very," Mira answered with her mouth full. "The best sandwich in the world," Jolie declared. Logan smiled. It was probably an ordinary sandwich, made with ordinary ingredients in an ordinary diner, but to Jolie, it was the best in the world. When was the last time he thought something was the best in the world? "Daddy, aren't you going to eat anything?" Mira asked, noticing he was only drinking coffee. "I'm not hungry." "Want a bite of my pancake?" Mira held out her fork with a dripping piece of chocolate syrup. Logan hesitated. The pancake was messy, the fork probably covered in kid saliva, but he took it anyway. "It's good," he said. And it was true. "I know," Mira said proudly. "I pick pancakes very well." After the snack, they went back to the park. The girls wanted to play on the grass, so Logan sat while they invented a game where they were explorers looking for treasures. "You have to help us," Jolie said. "You're the map. How am I a map?" "You say where the treasure is," Mira explained, as if it was obvious. Logan looked around and pointed to a distant tree. "The treasure is buried near that tree." The girls ran off. Logan followed, watching how they examined every leaf, every twig, completely absorbed in the game. They found a shiny little stone. "Guys, it's a diamond," Mira announced. "We're going to be rich," Jolie agreed. "We'll split it 3 ways," Mira decided. "1 piece for me, 1 for Jolie, 1 for Daddy." Logan looked at the ordinary stone they treated like a diamond. "Thank you," he said seriously. "I'll keep it very carefully." They played for another hour, chased butterflies, made flower crowns, tried to teach Logan to do somersaults. He couldn't. When it started to get cold, Logan suggested going home. "Already?" Mira complained. "Your mom is waiting," Logan said. In the car, the girls were quieter, tired after a full day of playing. Jolie started to doze in the back seat. When they arrived at Maple Street, Camille was on the porch waiting. "How was it?" she asked. "It was perfect," Mira replied, jumping out of the car. "We played on the slide and Daddy played too," Jolie added, more awake now. "We found a diamond." Mira showed the little stone. Camille smiled and looked at Logan. "A real diamond, impressive." "It was quite a day," Logan said. The girls ran inside to tell their mom all the details. Logan stayed on the porch for a moment, just breathing. There was something different about him, something he couldn't name. Jolie ran back and stopped in front of him. "Daddy?" "Yes." She hugged him tightly, squeezing with all the strength a 5-year-old can. "It was the best day," she whispered against his chest. Logan felt something breaking inside his chest. Something good breaking, like a wall he didn't know existed had crumbled. He hugged Jolie back, and this time it wasn't awkward, it was natural. "Me too," he said quietly, and it was true. When Jolie let go and ran back inside, Logan stood on the porch for a few more minutes. Camille approached. "Are you okay?" Logan looked at her and smiled. A genuine smile, unlike any he'd given in years. "I am," he said. And for the first time, he didn't try to analyze what he felt, didn't look for second intentions or hidden agendas, didn't question if he was making the right decision. He just knew, with a certainty that came from somewhere deep inside, that he didn't want to be away anymore, didn't want to miss a single day of his daughter's lives, didn't want to be a stranger to the 2 people who called him Daddy so naturally. "Camille?" "Yes?" Can I start coming every day, not just some days a week?" Camille studied his face. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely." "Then yes. They'll love that." Logan nodded and walked to the car. Before getting in, he looked back and saw 2 loving faces at the living room window waving at him. He waved back and drove home, knowing his life had changed forever. This time, for the better. Logan got home at 9 p.m. The apartment greeted him with the same silence as always. White walls, minimalist furniture, clean surfaces with nothing out of place. Everything exactly how he liked it, or how he used to like it. He tossed his keys on the metal tray by the door and stood in the entrance hall, just listening. Silence. Absolute silence. He walked to the living room and sat on the black leather sofa, turned on the TV but left it muted. Didn't want sound, just movement on the screen to break the stillness of the room. A few weeks ago, that ritual calmed him, coming home and finding peace in the emptiness. No noise, no chaos, no one wanting his attention or asking questions. But now the silence felt wrong. Logan got up and went to the kitchen, opened the fridge and stared at the neatly organized shelves, water, green juice, leftover Japanese food. Everything tidy, everything clean, everything lifeless. When was the last time he had eaten something homemade? When was the last time his kitchen served any purpose other than storing drinks and takeout? He closed the fridge and returned to the living room. The contrast was stark. A few hours ago, he was in a small, noisy diner, watching Mira smear chocolate syrup on her face and Jolie meticulously eating her sandwich. There was life there. Movement, laughter, organized chaos. Here there was only emptiness. Logan walked to the window and looked down at the city. Bright lights, cars passing, people living their lives. From where he was, everything seemed small and distant. He had always liked that feeling, being above it all, watching without participating, controlling without getting involved. But now he felt isolated. He returned to the couch and picked up his phone. There were 3 work messages, 2 meeting proposals for the next week, and a notification that his bank account had received dividends. Nothing requiring his immediate attention. Nothing that made him feel needed. Logan put down the phone and looked around the room. Every object had been chosen carefully. The glass coffee table, modern lamps, imported rug. All expensive, all beautiful, all perfectly coordinated, all completely impersonal. There wasn't a single personal photo in sight. No open books, magazines tossed on the table, shoes forgotten in the corner. No evidence anyone really lived there. It was a magazine apartment. Beautiful to look at, impossible to live in. Logan got up and walked to the shelf that took up an entire wall of the living room. It was his only concession to personal decoration. Business books, some company awards, a 50-year-old bottle of Scotch whiskey, and a single photo. He took the silver frame and stared at the image. It was him 3 years ago on top of a skyscraper his company had designed. He was alone in the photo, standing on the edge of the helipad, the city sprawling behind him like a carpet of lights. It was his favorite photo. It represented everything he had achieved: success, power, independence. At that moment, he felt on top of the world, literally. Logan always looked at it when he needed to remember who he was, what he had conquered, how good it felt to be in control of his own life. But now, looking at the photo, he only saw a lonely man. "Before, this silence protected me," he murmured to himself. "Now, it pushes me away." It was true. For years, he had used silence as a shield. He'd come home after days full of people wanting something from him and found peace in emptiness. No one to impress. No one to distrust. No one to disappoint. Silence was safe. But it was also dead. Logan put the photo back on the shelf and walked back to the window. He remembered the noise at the Maple Street house. Jolie and Mira laughing, arguing, singing off-key. Camille in the kitchen, preparing lunch. The sound of the TV on a cartoon. Footsteps running down the hallway. Life happening. When was the last time he'd heard someone laugh in his house? When was the last time someone ran through his halls? Never. Since buying the apartment 5 years ago, it had been just him, alone with his thoughts, fears, need for control. Logan returned to the sofa and sat again, picked up the photo a second time. The man in the image looked confident, successful, satisfied, but Logan knew the truth. That day on top of the building, he felt empty. He had just broken up with a girlfriend he suspected was only interested in his money. He was surrounded by employees who agreed with everything he said. He had just closed $1 million deal that didn't excite him. Success, but no happiness. Power, but no purpose. Independence, but no connection. For the first time since taking that photo, it didn't represent victory. It represented isolation. Logan remembered Jolie's hug a few hours earlier. It was the best day, she had said, and it was true. For her, a simple day at the park and a pancake at an ordinary diner was enough for complete happiness. When was the last time Logan had felt that way? Completely satisfied with something simple. He couldn't remember. He had spent so much time building walls, protecting himself from people who might want to take advantage of him, that he ended up protecting himself from the possibility of something real. The phone rang. Logan looked at the screen. Work. Probably some problem that could wait until tomorrow, but someone considered urgent. He let it ring until it went to voicemail. 5 years ago, he would have answered immediately. Work was his priority, his obsession, his identity. But today he had discovered something more important than work. He had discovered what it meant to be needed. Not because he was rich or powerful, but because 2 little girls called him Daddy and really wanted him there. Logan got up and walked to the bedroom. It was as impersonal as the rest of the house. Made bed, everything in place, no evidence of a life being lived. He opened the closet and looked at the rows of identical suits. Black, grey, navy blue, all expensive, all perfect, all the same. When was the last time he had dressed for anything other than work? At the park today, he'd felt overdressed in his dress pants and shirt. The other families wore jeans and t-shirts, clothes for playing and getting dirty, living. Logan closed the closet and returned to the living room. He sat on the sofa and looked around again. Everything he had built, everything he owned seemed inadequate now. Not inadequate in value or quality, but inadequate for the kind of life he was beginning to imagine. A life with 2 girls running through the halls. A life with drawings stuck on the fridge. A life with noise, chaos, and laughter echoing through the walls. A life with purpose beyond success. Logan grabbed his phone and opened the photo gallery. There were hundreds of images, meetings, work events, awards, business trips, but no personal photos, no memories of moments that really mattered. Today at the park, he'd thought about taking a photo of the girls playing, but he hadn't. He still didn't feel ready to document their lives. But maybe soon he could start making his own memories. Logan put the photo from the shelf on the coffee table where he could see it better. The lonely man at the top of the building stared back, well-dressed, successful, well-protected, and completely alone. "I don't want to be you anymore," Logan said to the photo. For the first time in years, he knew exactly what he wanted. He wanted to be the man Jolie and Mira saw when they looked at him, the man who deserved to be called Daddy, the man who was present, involved, caring more about loud laughter than high profits. Logan turned off the TV and went to the bedroom. Tomorrow he would return to Maple Street, and the next day, and the day after, because he had discovered that the silence that always protected him had also imprisoned him, and it was time to break free. Logan had become a constant presence at the Maple Street house. 2 weeks after the day at the park, his routine had completely changed. Instead of working late every day, he left the office at 5 sharp. Instead of lonely dinners and silent nights, he spent afternoons playing in the yard and helping with homework. The girls had gotten used to his presence. They no longer ran to the door when he arrived. They just looked, smiled, and continued what they were doing, as if they always knew he'd come. It was a Thursday afternoon when Jolie approached him with something hidden behind her back. Logan was on the sofa, trying to do a puzzle with Mira, when he felt a poke on his shoulder. "Daddy?" "Yes," Jolie was serious, more serious than a 5-year-old should be. "We made something for you." "You did?" Mira dropped the puzzle piece and ran close to her sister. Tell him, Jolie." "I will." Jolie took a deep breath, as if preparing for an important speech. "We drew our family." Logan felt something move in his chest. "Your family." "Our family," Mira corrected. "Yours, mine, Jolie's, and Mommy's." Jolie took the paper from behind her back and handed it to Logan. It was a typical child's drawing, 4 stick figures of different sizes, all holding hands in a row. The smallest figure had short hair and a huge smile, clearly Mira. Next to her, a slightly bigger figure with longer hair, Jolie. Then a figure in a skirt with wavy hair, Camille. And finally, a tall figure wearing what looked like a tie, him. In the middle of the drawing, floating above the 4 figures, was a red heart drawn so carefully that you could still see the pencil marks where it was erased and redone several times. Logan held the paper with both hands as if it were made of glass. "We drew our family," Jolie repeated, her voice full of pride. Logan looked at the drawing and felt something breaking inside his chest, something good breaking. Throughout his adult life, he had avoided forming bonds, avoided becoming part of something bigger than himself, and now he was looking at a drawing where he was represented as a fundamental part of a family. A family. "Can I keep it?" he asked, his voice quieter than intended. "Of course," Mira answered, as if it was obvious. "It's yours," Jolie said softly. "It always was. Always was." Logan looked at the girls, then at the drawing, then at the girls again. "Thank you," he said, and the word carried much more weight than two 5-year-olds could understand. Camille had watched the whole scene from the kitchen. She approached and sat in the armchair, a small smile on her face. They worked on the drawing all morning, she said. They argued about what color to use for the heart. Mira wanted pink, Jolie wanted red. Why did red win? Because red is the color of true love, Jolie explained with the seriousness of someone absolutely sure of what she was saying. Logan looked at the red heart in the center of the drawing. How do you know so much about love? Mom taught us, Mira answered. Logan looked at Camille, who just shrugged. They asked how to recognize true love. I said true love is when someone stays even when things get hard. And you stayed, Jolie added, looking at Logan. Even when we got sick last time, even when we fought, even when we made a mess, you always come back. Logan remembered the previous week when the girls had argued about whose turn it was to pick the show on TV. The argument escalated into crying, shouting, and mutual accusations of "that's not fair." His first reaction was to step away, let Camille handle it. That's what he always did when things got emotionally charged. He withdrew. But this time he stayed, helped mediate, suggested they watch 2 episodes, 1 each, stayed until the conflict was resolved and the girls played together again. They didn't expect a perfect dad, Camille said quietly, as if reading his thoughts. Just one who stays. Logan carefully folded the drawing and put it in his wallet. I'm going to hang it on my office wall, he said. Really? Mira asked, eyes shining. Really? So everyone can see our family? Our family. The words came naturally, without hesitation. It was the first time Logan referred to the group as our family, out loud. And it felt right. The rest of the afternoon passed normally. They played in the yard, helped Camille prepare dinner, watched a cartoon. Logan said goodbye at 8 p.m, promising to come back the next day. But when he arrived the next morning, something was different. Camille opened the door even before he knocked, her face worried. They have a fever, she said without preamble. Logan felt his blood run cold. A fever? Since when? They woke up like that. Mira has 101.3 degrees and Jolie has 100.8 degrees. Logan pushed the door and went in quickly. Where are they? On the couch. Logan, they're fine, it's just... But Logan was already in the living room, seeing the 2 girls wrapped in a blanket, pale and clearly feeling sick. Hi, Daddy, Mira said weakly. We're not feeling well today, Jolie added, as if apologizing. Logan knelt in front of the couch and put his hand on each of their foreheads. They were too hot, way too hot. I'm taking you to the hospital, now. Logan, wait, Camille tried to intervene. It's just a flu. I gave them fever medicine. They're better than an hour ago. But Logan wasn't listening. He was already taking the girls' blankets off. Come on, girls. Let's take a little trip. Daddy, I don't want to go, Mira complained. Just for a little while, the doctor will check on you. Logan carried them in his arms, one on each side, and headed for the door. Logan, it's just the common flu, Camille insisted, grabbing her bag and running after him. Fever is normal. Kids get sick. Not my daughters, Logan answered, something fierce in his voice. In the car, he put the girls in the back seat and turned on the air conditioning. Are you feeling very bad? A little, Jolie replied. My head hurts, Mira added. Logan stepped on the accelerator. Camille, in the passenger seat, tried to calm him. Logan, breathe. A 100.4 degrees fever isn't an emergency. It's a normal response by the body to fight viruses. How can you be so sure? Because I've been through this before. Alone. Many times. The word alone hit Logan like a punch. Camille had faced the girls' illnesses alone for 5 years. Sleepless nights, scares, worries, all alone. But he wasn't thinking about that now. He could only think that his daughters were sick and he needed to do something. The hospital was 15 minutes from the house, but Logan made the trip in 10. He parked at the emergency entrance and carried the girls in his arms again. You didn't have to rush so much, Camille murmured, but was smiling. At reception, Logan identified himself and explained the situation to the nurse. Fever for how many hours? A few hours, Camille answered. Vomiting, diarrhea, difficulty breathing. No. Are they playing? Eating. They ate a little at breakfast, Camille said. The nurse smiled. Sounds like a common flu, but we'll take a look. Logan sat in the waiting room holding the girls. They had cheered up a bit with the change of environment and were watching other people. Daddy is worried about us, Jolie observed. Daddy's worry, Mira replied, as if an expert on the subject. 15 minutes later, they were called for the consultation. The doctor, a calm man in his 50s, carefully examined the girls, checked throat, ears, listened to lungs, checked lymph nodes. Common flu, he diagnosed. Seasonal virus. Very normal at this time of year. Logan felt such relief he almost sat down. Are you sure? Absolutely. Fever medicine when the fever bothers, lots of fluids, rest. In 3 days they'll be fine. No need for antibiotics. Tests, hospitalization? The doctor smiled. First-time dad. Yes, Logan admitted. Normal to worry, but they're fine. Really fine. On the way home, the girls slept in the back seat. Logan drove slowly, checking in the rearview mirror every few seconds to see if they were still breathing normally. Camille was quiet in the passenger seat. Do you think I overreacted? I think you care, she answered. A lot. Logan stopped at a red light and looked back. Jolie and Mira slept leaning on each other, steady breathing, faces finally without the sickly pallor. I've never been afraid of anything, he said softly. Until today. Welcome to fatherhood, Camille murmured. Is it always like this? This fear? Always. It gets better with time, but it never completely goes away. Logan resumed driving. How did you manage alone for 5 years? Because I had no choice, and because I knew they needed me whole, not panicked. Logan thought about that. Thank you for not stopping me from taking them to the hospital. You needed to be sure. I understand. Even if it was overreacting, Camille smiled. Logan, you found out you're a dad just a few weeks ago. You cut years of normal worries into a few intense weeks. It's natural to panic at the first illness. When they got home, Logan carried the sleeping girls inside and laid them on the couch. They didn't even wake up during the transfer. Camille covered them with a blanket and checked their temperatures again. The fever had gone down. They'll be fine, she said to Logan. I know, he answered. Now I know. But he stayed sitting next to the couch, watching them sleep. A few hours earlier, he looked at a drawing where he was represented as part of a family. Now he understood that being part of a family meant much more than being in a drawing. It meant caring, it meant being afraid. It meant that his own peace depended on the well-being of others. It was terrifying, and it was the best thing that had ever happened to him. After the fever episode, something changed in Logan. It wasn't a sudden or dramatic change. It was gradual, like a door that was ajar finally being thrown wide open. He started arriving earlier at Maple Street. Instead of punctual visits after work, he showed up at 4 p.m., sometimes even at lunchtime. He rearranged his entire schedule to have more free time, delegated responsibilities he used to insist on doing personally, cancelled unnecessary trips. So the girls will think you live here, Camille joked one Friday afternoon, when Logan arrived with a bag of children's books and a watercolor kit. That wouldn't be a bad idea, he replied, and something in his serious tone made Camille look at him more closely. Logan had become a dedicated student of fatherhood. He observed every detail of the girls' personalities, as if analyzing the most important project of his life. He found out Jolie was afraid of the dark, but too proud to admit it to anyone. On the nights he stayed for dinner, he noticed how she always found elaborate excuses not to go to her room alone after dark. I need to get my teddy bear, she would say with forced naturalness. I forgot to brush my teeth. I think I left the window open and the wind is blowing. Want me to come get your teddy bear with you? Logan would offer casually, pretending not to notice the pattern. No need, Jolie would answer with dignity, but her eyes revealed immediate relief. "I'll come anyway. I also want to see how that drawing you were making yesterday turned out." And he followed, turning on all the lights along the way, making comments about the drawings stuck to the wall, about the books organized on the shelf, about anything to keep the conversation flowing until she felt safe enough. He never mentioned the fear, never made her feel weak. He was just there. With Mira, he learned she processed emotions through physical movement. When she was frustrated, sad, or confused, she didn't cry or throw tantrums like most kids. She started running in circles in the yard, as if she could run the feelings away. "Why is Mira running?" he asked one afternoon, watching the girl circle endlessly on the grass. "She had an argument with a friend at the neighbor's house," Camille explained, watching from the window. "The friend said she didn't know how to play with dolls right, that she was doing everything wrong. That's how she releases her feelings." Logan went down to the yard and watched Mira for a few minutes, trying to understand the process. "Can I run with you?" Mira stopped abruptly, surprised and breathless. "Do you know how to run for real?" "Of course I do. Race you to that big tree." For 15 minutes, Logan ran after a 5-year-old girl around the yard, making sure to let her win most of the races. When they stopped, both breathless and sweaty, Mira was smiling again. "I feel better now," she said, throwing herself on the grass with satisfaction. "Me too," Logan replied, sitting beside her. "Sometimes you just have to let the bad feelings out of your body." "Yeah, running they go out through your feet and leave," Mira explained with the simple wisdom of a child. Logan smiled genuinely. "Makes perfect sense." Slowly, he built small but deeply meaningful traditions. Every Tuesday became official story time. Logan discovered he had a natural talent for storytelling, creating epic, elaborate adventures where Jolie and Mira were always the main heroines. They sat one on each side of him on the living room sofa, completely absorbed in stories of brave princesses and adventurous sisters. "Tell the one about the dragon who just wanted to make friends but nobody understood," Mira always asked. "No, tell the one about the princess who became an inventor and created a machine to make colorful clouds," Jolie asked at the same time. Logan told both Hess and a few others, adding new details to each version, creating a complex narrative universe where the girls were always clever, brave, and kind. Thursday became cooking day. Logan, who had never cooked anything beyond heating food in the microwave, invested time in family recipe books and online tutorials. He learned to make perfect pancakes, elaborate sandwiches with fun shapes, simple cookies, and even a basic chocolate cake. "You're becoming a real dad," Camille observed one Thursday afternoon, watching Logan teach Jolie to crack eggs with scientific precision, while Mira measured flour with the seriousness of a professional chef. Logan stopped what he was doing and looked around. Small flour-covered hands, completely messy countertop, batter splashes on the wall, laughter and lively chatter echoing through the kitchen. 6 months ago, all that mess would have made him deeply anxious. Now it seemed absolutely perfect. "See how good it is to have someone around," Camille said with a half smile, gently wiping some flour from Mira's nose. Logan looked at her and didn't answer immediately, but his eyes said it all. Deep gratitude that she had allowed him into that life, honest recognition that he had wasted 5 precious years, and something deeper, the complete understanding that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. "It's good," he said simply. "It's really good." It was on a rainy autumn Friday, 3 months after their first meeting at the park, that Logan made a decision he'd been maturing for weeks. He arrived at Maple Street with a folder of documents instead of the usual toys, a serious and determined look on his face. "Camille, I need to talk to you about something important." "Did something happen? You look worried." "Yes, something happened. I want you 3 to move." Camille's face visibly paled. "Logan, if you think we're becoming too dependent on you, or if this is interfering with your life—" "No," he interrupted quickly, realizing how his words sounded. "It's not that at all. I want you to move to a better house." Camille frowned, genuinely confused. "Girls better how? Logan carefully opened the folder and pulled out printed photos of a big, cozy house with a spacious yard and wooden porch. I found this house last week. 3 large bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, huge backyard with trees for the girls to climb, and space for them to play. It's in a safe residential neighborhood with an excellent school 2 blocks away. Logan, before you say anything or start protesting, I need you to understand one thing. This is not charity, it's care. You deserve more than this small house where you barely fit. The girls deserve their own rooms, space to grow, safety, opportunities. Camille looked at the photos in prolonged silence, going through each image. I can't afford the rent on a house like that, Logan. You know that. I can, and I want to pay. Why? Logan stopped and thought carefully about the answer, knowing it was important. Because they're my daughters, and I want to give them the best I can offer. Because I want them to grow up in an environment where they can dream big and have space to fulfill those dreams, and because I want them to have a place to welcome me when I want to stay longer. Camille studied his face closely. Longer how exactly? Whole weekends, long holidays, vacations maybe. I want to have a room in that house, Camille. I want a place where I can stay when they're sick, when they have nightmares, when they need help. Are you absolutely sure about that? Logan looked toward the yard, where the girls were playing house with cardboard boxes as furniture. I'm sure I want to be part of their lives for real, every day. And I'm sure you 3 deserve a house where you can grow up without limits. The move happened 3 weeks later, on a sunny November Saturday. Logan hired the best moving company in town, but insisted on helping personally at every step. He carried heavy boxes, assembled new furniture, helped the girls carefully choose how they wanted to arrange their new rooms. Is this room really just mine? Jolie asked for the 5th time, spinning in the empty space that was 3 times bigger than before. Just yours. You can decorate it exactly how you want. And can I paint the walls any color I choose? Mira asked, already mentally planning. So we can go to the store and pick colors together tomorrow. The new house completely changed the dynamics of everything. Logan started spending entire weekends with them, arriving Friday night after work and only leaving Sunday after dinner. Gradually, he established his permanent presence in the house. He had his own toothbrush in the bathroom, casual clothes hung in the guest room closet, his fixed spot at the kitchen table. The girls, now with enough space, emotional stability, and an established routine, finally started going to school. Logan made sure to personally attend the first day, helped pick out colorful, fun backpacks, enthusiastically bought all the required supplies, attended the parent meeting as if it were the most important event of his career. This is our daddy, Jolie proudly introduced him to the teacher. He teaches us how to make pancakes and tells the best stories in the world, Mira added, proudly nodding. The teacher smiled kindly. You're very lucky. We know, Sin, the 2 answered in perfect sync. Every Friday became a sacred ritual. When the girls came home from school, they ran straight to Logan to show their weekly notebooks, carefully done homework, drawings made in class, small and big achievements. Look, Daddy, I learned to write my whole name without anyone helping. Look at this drawing of our family I made in art class. The teacher said my essay on my family was the best in the whole class. Logan kept everything religiously, old notebooks, crumpled drawings, graded tests, loving notes from teachers, all went into special boxes organized chronologically in his office. It was on a sunny December Sunday, 3 weeks before Christmas, that the moment happened Logan would never forget. They were in the big room of the new house, decorating a Christmas tree together. Logan, in his characteristic enthusiasm, had bought a tree too big for the space and more Christmas decorations than 2 kids could use in 5 consecutive holidays. The girls were in total excitement, running from one side of the room to the other, hanging colorful balls on increasingly overloaded branches, creating decorative patterns that only made sense in child logic. Logan was on top of a small ladder, carefully adjusting the golden angel at the top of the tree. when he felt two pairs of small arms simultaneously wrapping around his waist. He looked down and saw Jolie and Mira hugging him, both looking up with unusually serious expressions. "Daddy," Jolie said in a quieter voice than usual. "Yes, we love you," she said with absolute clarity and seriousness. "Very, very much," Mira added, squeezing the hug tightly. Logan completely stopped what he was doing. The ladder shook slightly, but he didn't even notice. No one had said those words to him since. He couldn't remember since when, maybe never with such sincerity. He carefully climbed down the ladder and knelt in front of the girls, getting to their eye level. "Do you really love me?" "Of course," Jolie said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. "You're our daddy." "And you love us too," Mira added with the absolute confidence only a child can have. Logan paused, took a deep breath, feeling something moving in his chest, something warm and overwhelming that almost knocked him down. "I love you too," he said in a low voice, but firm and clear. "Very much. More than I ever imagined possible to love anyone in life." The girls smiled simultaneously and hugged him tighter, squeezing against him. "We always knew it," Jolie murmured against his chest. "How did you always know?" "Because you stayed," Mira explained with deep simplicity. "People who really love us stay, even when it's hard." Logan hugged his daughters for a long moment, eyes burning with tears refusing to fall but definitely there. Camille was standing in the doorway, watching the whole scene with a deeply emotional smile. "Now we're really a complete family," she said quietly. "We always were," Logan answered without letting go of the girls. "I just took 5 years to realize it." The following Monday, Logan was at the office when Marcus brought a small package. "The photos you requested have been developed, Mr. Mercer." Logan carefully opened the envelope and smiled upon seeing the result. They were photos from the previous weekend, the girls running freely in the new house's yard, him patiently teaching Mira to ride a bike, Jolie reading a story aloud to him, the three making exaggerated faces at the camera, completely relaxed. He chose the best one, a spontaneous photo where the three were hugging on the sofa, laughing at some inside joke, completely relaxed, and put it in an elegant silver frame. The old photo from the rooftop, where he was alone watching the city, had been carefully put away in a drawer weeks ago. On his office desk, right in front of the chair where he spent most days, there was now only the photo of his daughters. Every time his schedule got too busy, every time a meeting ran past the promised time, every time someone tried to convince him to work late or travel on weekends, Logan looked at that photo. Two girls smiling at the camera, confident and certain their dad would be home in time for dinner, to help with homework, to tell bedtime stories. "You're the best things in my life," he murmured to the photo on a particularly stressful afternoon at the office,